welcome to HCM World. This is our 5th annual HCM World. I can't believe it's here already, and I think it promises to be the best one ever. We have an incredible lineup of speakers for you throughout the next couple of days. We've worked really hard on the agenda. I'll be introducing Jacob Morgan in a few minutes, along with Bill Allen. And you will hear from more than 5 different customers on stage tomorrow who all are far along in their journey to the cloud to tell you about their story. And we'll also have Mark Hurd with us tomorrow to talk about his latest thoughts on AI. We're really excited about that. Beyond the keynotes, there's a ton of content for you to discover. And you should each have a brochure that looks like the one up on the screen to help you really think through and plan the sessions that you want to attend. There are a number of different tracks that are organized by topic for you to discover content that's really relevant for you. So make sure you take a look at all of the sessions and plan them out. You'll actually go to your first one after the keynotes today. I really want to thank our sponsors, because without them, we could not put this program on. Please join me in giving a big round of applause to Deloitte, who is our diamond sponsor this year. Many thanks to our friends at Deloitte, and many thanks to our other fabulous partners who are listed on the screen, who have sponsored various events that you'll participate in, as well as the tracks when you go to the breakout sessions, and some of the fun things that you'll see in the exhibit hall. So thank all of you. I thank all of you for sponsoring this event. One of the other things we really want you to do is to be social, not just with each other, but also on social media. So please be sure that when you hear things that you find to be really interesting, that you tweet them out and you use hashtag Oracle HCM. Also, if you haven't already, we want you to download the app. So there's actually an app for this event. If you go to the App Store, search for Oracle Events 18, and download the app, because it will contain the schedule of everything that's going to be relevant to you over the next couple of days. Before we get started, I like to kick off the program by reviewing some of the research that exists out in the space on both business and in HR, to take a look at the trends that are emerging for 2018 and to highlight how we've paid close attention to research and picked some of the themes for the conference and some of the content that you'll be seeing throughout the next couple of days. So let's start first with the CEO's agenda. Every year, one of my favorite studies comes out from our friends at PwC, and this is the 21st year that they've done their annual CEO study. There are thousands of CEOs from all over the world that participate in this study. It's very easy to find on their website. And what they do is they ask CEOs to prioritize the business challenges that keep them up at night. And I always like to see which of them are related to HR. So you'll see on the screen on the left-hand side was 2017, the right-hand side 2018, things like overregulation, uncertain economic growth, terrorism, and you'll also see that the availability of key skills, it's scary that that's near terrorism, but the availability of key skills shows up in the top third of concerns for CEOs, both last year as well as this year in PwC's study. And so we'll be spending a lot of time in the breakout sessions talking about what your peer groups are doing to develop skills, to help people learn, to attract the skills that really are important for business growth, and ultimately to grow them in-house. So it's a hot topic. One of the things that I found to be really interesting is that while the key skill issue was a top priority, it was really at the top of the list for Asia-Pac. So availability of key skills was the #1 challenge stated by CEOs in Asia-Pac. So for those of you that do business in that part of the world, I'm sure you're probably experiencing some of the pain that came out of this study. There was another interesting study that I found where the Conference Board and DDI collaborated. So if you're not familiar with DDI, it's Development Dimensions. They're one of the 3 big providers of leadership development, assessment, training. They created targeted selection for those of you in recruiting. And they partnered with Conference Board and did a study on CEO challenges. So similar type of a setup. And what they found was a priority, or what was keeping CEOs awake at night, was developing the next generation of leaders and the failure to attract or retain top talent. So again, you'll start to see these trends at the top of the CEO's agenda, and we've really paid close attention to them in the breakout tracks as well. Let's switch over to some of the HR studies. So HR Trends has been doing this study for a couple of years, and I looked at it this year and I thought it was hysterical. I thought, what in the heck is PTB to EI? Does anybody know what PTB is? I thought it was like peanut butter and jelly or something. I didn't know what it meant, but it was about moving away from pleasing thy boss to employee intimacy. So one of the things that you'll see is that we'll have a lot of presentations on employee engagement and employee intimacy. And some of the other ones that really jumped out at me was a renewed focus on productivity. It's a hot topic in all the studies that I took a look at. So how do we enable our employees to get work done smarter, faster, so that they're spending more time with what's really important, right? Their customers or their patients, depending on what industry they're in. They also talked about in this study the power to the people, and they weren't talking about empowerment. They were talking about the importance of allowing your workforce to work however they want, with any device that they want. So we'll have lots of stories throughout the conference on how our customers are using the mobile capabilities in the cloud to really adhere and align to this trend and priority that we've seen. Also, if you saw Deloitte's study last year, Josh Bersin talked a lot about the fluidity of jobs and how organizational structures were changing. And we're seeing that there's kind of an end of fixed jobs, and more organizations are having jobs that allow people to work on multiple different things and perhaps that aren't constrained to a job description anymore. And then the focus on learning in real time. So that notion of YouTube-type snippet learning is so important. So if you go to any of the breakout tracks on learning, you'll see how your peer group is really using some of those learning features and video-type features that are so important to just-in-time learning. There was a blog that Willis Towers Watson did on the top 5 priorities for human resources. And I thought this one was really succinct and to the point. Know your business, customers, and competition, and you'll start to see the importance of tech savvy show up in this study. So being more tech savvy, making data more interactive, and engaging digital talent. And I thought, I wonder what they really mean by digital talent. And one of the reasons that I liked this study is that they didn't use the term millennials, which I don't know about you, but I'm so sick of going to an HR event and hearing people talk about millennials because none of the research really indicates that there's statistically significant difference in what millennials want. But what I liked about this study was that they talked about, instead of calling that group of people millennials, they called them digital talent. So digital, folks that really grew up in the digital era. And that's the way that they want to onboard with companies, find new jobs, interact with jobs, get their work done, et cetera. And you see in this study the emergence of supporting diversity and well-being. So I'm happy to see diversity back on the priority and the agenda list for a lot of these studies, and lots of noise about well-being. And we've had well-being in our cloud solutions for a number of years now. I know Chris Leone nothing would make him happier than if you guys were embracing it. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go to the vendor hall and the expo hall and take a look at our wellness apps. And I looked at this study on the plane yesterday. This one was brand new, and it was on a site called HR Dive. I had never seen this one before, but I thought it was worth sharing because there were some things on here that I really liked. The changing role of the CHR, which I swear has been on every HR study that I've seen in the last 25 years. but really focus on branding and the employee experience and making the branding that your employees feel similar to the branding that's out there from a consumer standpoint, bringing it all together. And what I love about that is that it forces HR to work with advertising and marketing and all different, and IT and different parts of the company to really have a succinct view on how you integrate and interact with your employees. More on upskilling the talent pipeline, and so you'll see that these top 3 topics are ones that will be very prevalent in the breakouts throughout the day. And some other things that are very important and very timely, especially in the media around fighting harassment, et cetera. So a cool study to look up when you have the time. And then the last 2 that I'll share with you are 2 different studies that I found that were specific to HR technology disruption. So again, these studies are very easy to seek out. This one was done by our friends at Deloitte, again, our primary sponsor of the event. And I thought this one was great, and it really summed up what we see in the market all the time, with, again, a focus on productivity that we've seen in some of the other studies that I mentioned. Also the focus of looking at movements to the cloud that aren't just about HCM, but this joint movement between both ERP and HCM. And we'll actually have a customer present on that topic tomorrow so that you can really understand what that looks like and what the benefits are for the organization. This notion of continuous feedback. So I promise you, I laughed 8 years ago when I heard that organizations were blowing up performance management. I thought, it's never gonna work. And the reality is, every customer that I talked to that told me they blew up performance management and they didn't have ratings really still had a secret spreadsheet in Excel behind the scenes so that they could divvy out compensation, right? So nobody really blew up performance. What they did is they started to change it. And they started to change it into this notion of continuous feedback. And that's really the most prominent trend that we've seen in performance management, and one that you'll see in the breakout tracks, and that our technology has done a really good job of enabling. And then this notion of pulse feedback and surveys and analytics. And we're gonna spend time tomorrow focused on that when Mark Hurd presents, and he'll be joined by Jack Berkowitz, who runs all of our AI development at Oracle, as well as Gretchen Alarcon, who most of you probably know, that's in charge of HCM strategy for Oracle. So we'll bring that to life for you tomorrow. And then this whole notion of intelligent self-service, bots, Amazon, Echo, whatever the case may be, how does all of this work and how do we bring it into the workplace? And the last study that I saw on the plane yesterday, so these are really timely, was SHRM took a look at the Gartner technology study that came out and extracted the five of the 10 trends that Gartner focused on for 2018 to the ones that were relevant to HR. And you'll see that AI, intelligent apps and analytics, conversational platforms with those devices that I just mentioned are at the top of the list. And again, we're gonna be showing you that and telling you about that. And the last study was one that was done by our friends at Accenture that was focused on the transformed role of the HR executive. And we're actually gonna have a 3-time CHRO in one of our keynotes yet this afternoon to talk about his perspective of what's been important from a CHRO's desk. And you'll see the 3 things that were listed here. Number 1, a focus on how do you make your organization more digital. We see more CEOs and CHROs saying this is a combined effort, not just for our business, but for our employees. And how do we leverage the latest advances in both organizational and personal psychology? And so that brings a lot of elements to culture. What does it feel like to work here? Am I connected to the workplace? And how do we adapt to what people's sentiments are and what their belief systems are so that we can support that in the workforce? And then ultimately drawing on new ideas from other business functions and external sources to really increase workforce productivity. So the span and the net continues to get bigger and bigger for HR.